start off with some poems from most recent manuscript I've been working on because, as Leopoldo mentioned, I'm an astrologer, and this coming Sunday there's a kind of major alignment that's this where Saturn and Pluto will meet in the sky. And it's a rare occurrence. It happens only about once every 35 years. And in most traditions of astrology, Saturn represents limitation and constriction. Pluto represents kind of libidinal energy and kind of explosion. And so if you can imagine like what that entails, it's a lot of repression of energy, and so I'm gonna read this. I put together a lot of source material from different times when these planets were aligned, and so there are things from the contemporary moment. There's I don't know if any of you are familiar with the 1619 Project from the New York Times, dealing with the legacy of slavery. There's also statements from migrant children that were detained at the border as part of there's a lawsuit against the Border Patrol. It also includes texts from as far back as Dante. In fact, every single one of the poems in this sequence uses a line from the Divine Comedy. And there are texts from the 50s and 60s when these planets were aligned, like Wilhelm Reich's letters from prison. When he was imprisoned by the FDA for doing research into the orgone.
Into what?
The orgone, which is kind of...
he had the orgone box.
Yeah.
And it was clear that you could, a big thing with candles and stuff, you grabbed it and you could release cancer into it.
Yeah, his idea was that the sexual energy within the body is also replicated in the very cells, and so he was doing a lot of research into how to tap into that potential to help do things like cure cancer.
And he was jailed for that?
Yes, the FDA. Well, they put him in jail for contempt of court eventually, but they were trying to shut down his research because it wasn't regulated. These machines were medical, they were claiming it was medical devices. But really what it was the FDA was trying to, they saw what he was doing as smut research. So, but he also, he published a theory about the kind of origins of fascism, and that it stems from heavy amounts of sexual repression that spills over into this desire for authoritarianism. So I kind of thought that was pretty pertinent as well. So there are a lot of texts like that kind of swirling around in these poems. I'm going to read a few of these, and then I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So the overall manuscript's called The Ends of America. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk. I have not been told how long we will be here, sniffing for a scapegoat to end things. Many tribal people have seen Western technology, a blade cutting into the earth, a patient transforming into an engine. The lights are on all the time. The empire had grown too unwieldy to be ruled, a body devoid of all gravity, fending off the Satans and forbidding, "Why do you do that to us?" They couldn't catch those things, they were furious. measures of repressed retribution, most men feel inadequate when confronted. Talk about an absent God, struggling with terror, turn to view visible people who lived under the seas a monstrous child erupts all over. You may ask yourself, my God, what have I done? The gods are all angry. People have trouble even communicating. There are babies cooped in padded pen lots, their childhood bombed out of their houses, ready to risk danger undertaking this wall, this well-set trap. Permit me to rip open a piece of the iron curtain that hides a whole labyrinth of the dead common heritage of children I am no longer able to adjust to reach the consequences great feelings take with them. Come here, they said. Why did you do that to us? Swept up in the current, entire nations acting out their aroused energies rising within that want to control Anaximander's map like a serpent with its tail in its mouth. I fear it will in folly end the front door in a perpetual state of disrepair, reel in shadows of those indignant desert birds. You know, I'd go back there tomorrow, but something's missing from the history, an obsessive attachment to what, whom one loves, the great acceleration of human numbers, the dictators inside us, the H-bomb. I can't find what to do if that combination is anglicized beasts not in the zoo. The empire could not be ruled in. 7,000 people had already retweeted desire for a safe participation in loss, in love, in chaos, confronting the damage done to nature, the dangers. Do not make fun of them. We are indeed walking on a thin crust in unconsciousness. Its underworld instincts, the dark dismissal mandated by the label political, a strange, unbiblical distinction between body and soul, caused the lamentable sound and stank all the land whereon that tempest fell with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea you left us with. Death songs, but they are more beautiful than your men. 10,000 people, maybe more, talking the end of innocence, the only resource whose use has not declined. We asked the guards why they were taking our family apart. They yelled, "What is happening? This is happening to me!" They yelled in front of everyone to sit down, stop asking the translucent tessera of saints and martyrs to unleash the world cataclysm, thread by which our fate hangs. Fragile plants will break through concrete depression of neighbors because temptation exists everywhere when one is searching for the most dangerous man in the animal, agitated in vessels they conserve karma. We cannot know where the boundary lies. An office next door, a contiguous room, all the woe hems in all the universe, so distorted that they made any one moment out of hell, but the mere pleasure of a world that has taken hundreds of years to create, but mere seconds to destroy. Sort of like the end of the world is coming. You always get where you're going and they come back. Nuclear bombs, concentration camps, extinction of vast numbers. We swallow them in our food and water, breathe them in black clouds which have oppressed our continent, this island of the dead, disintegrating radioactive revolt against the irremediable, conveniently left out of our founding mythology. The border we did not recognize. Some people need emotional intensity. The plutonic underworld in several senses, males that scarce the cradle were supplied, another origin assigned. My country, I forewarn now that falsehood led against the biggest, damnedest creature nature uncorks, not merely killed, but castrated, burned alive and dismembered, body parts displayed in storefronts, the blood dim tide loosed without commercial interruptions.
Whoa.
So that's coming on Sunday, but I feel like we already got a dose of it this last weekend. So I'm going to read two more. These are a little longer. But they're from a series of haibun that I was doing about 4 or 5 years ago, where I was having a really rough period. I was kind of having a bit of a nervous breakdown over the summer. I'd had a lot of issues with housing that was becoming unstable, and my job was in danger of going away. And I started turning to tarot cards to try and make sense of what was happening. And so then these poems kind of came out of that, and they incorporate a lot of text from guides for learning to read the tarot, along with different songs that were playing as I was writing these. So I'll jump into these. This first one is called Tesseractive, or the. How do we go into the future? We're on a journey through everything says that winter is coming. The sign on the trail reads, "You are in love is the alchemy of the universe." Each time I start to feel the instinct burns such displacements after illusions come pouring down on this new home of mine. When the winter rains come, the birds head for the center, the entity of matter that is the root of fire, a spiritual power that has the ability to grow that tree of knowledge of good, and we came a long way from what we actually felt content, intoxicating. What is beneath the calm keeps it hidden. We had got abstract and impersonal a bit. You wrote your name in every one of my books. That signature, ex nihilo, nihil, something created, something describing what is better to have lost than preliminary to being blown up. But much depends on what we perceive outside. Will I still be in your fire signs and firehouses, in the air, in all our opposites, full of ideas in retrograde? We were floating in that logic. I won't be back. And the fiddler said to the drum in a rushing medium, and the element of earth reached that final place of, we'll keep good time. Being busy with grabbing it needs a concentration on emotion, not to get buried in nothing. The first time I made coffee just for myself, I made too much of, I love to hear you talk. If you broke, you'd have none, a symbol for anything unintended for exchange, everything different from the owned. A property I'll never get inside. The confession, my morphine-mourned events, I will not despair my relief at having written down that thought is enormous. The deadness we ascribe to the external world is not really there. Environments see the possibility of making an idea come true, but most people just react. Being driven, the dog circles more than a moth before the tail makes the entire body move. Let the traffic pass the crop circle fields of anarchy and destiny. We ate that apple and felt the hand of Saturn. In the lull, activity drops your mind, the way the blue can pull me. Two hands are a complicated case of a very common fact of shape. Right and left cannot coincide until the glove, turned in, pulls through itself. I'm seldom in my dreams without children or some other sad symbol from time's chest lie hid. Every moment has a new journey through the past. Pulling through is not an impossibility. We have faculties by which we recognize a useful bit of information about ourselves. I want to remember more than we couldn't say that an astronaut could have seen. Everything depends on a native, spontaneous power. The red fire of space absorbed in water, the vital sap which builds the tree, which disperses this air, which fills these lungs of earth and down into the blood which rushes the parts together. Can you feel it? I heart, your heart. My son will always sing the deep I carry in your heart. And this last one here is titled Thigmomorphogenesis, which is, this is how plants kind of perceive within their cellular structure the sensations around them, and then tend to make adjustments. So like where you put a plant in the room can affect like how it grows out and the types of leaves that it develops, and also like how they kind of can respond to things like touch or caressing or hugging. Plants can often cause them to grow more full. So that's kind of where the title of this comes from. And it has an epigraph by Alice Bailey, who's a theosophist, in her Labors of Hercules. Too long have we belabored the body, the physical, as the root of all evil, when it is really our narrow minds, our hard, small hearts. Can we ever recover? The course of a lifetime runs over and over again. The world runs on such efficiencies. Tobacco plants know the color of the last light they saw. I was thinking about turquoise. Light is a dominant factor in opening and closing. I see it every morning. Who needs a watch when the flowers know the time I'm rising from within? Circadian clocks are full of complications. We are wandering here from the meadow to the lab to study. To think according to appearances is never easy. It's transfiguration, not transformation. The rhythm ends, but I'm trying to play the truth. I keep pushing back. It's hard to put one over on a dandelion. The way a gardener looks at time is very different. Who stands outside for hours gazing at a star flower instead of a Samsung Galaxy? Today, the eternal is in the trees. No one cares about reality bites is leaving Netflix in November. No climate deniers, no conspiracy theorists. Please do yourself a favor and swipe left. Open minds, swipe right. Keep calm and keep on swiping this touchscreen veil. Plants anticipate the act of having their leaves torn. I can't hold it much longer. Here comes a feeling I can't stop. Intent produce some kind of force. A field you could feel emotionless and bored. Is it cold tonight, my love? I keep sliding out of time. It's been years, and still a cup can show the way, our most mysterious first form. You can make like a tree the exact moment when a philodendron entered into recordable contact with a human. Reception is a master skill. Sometimes it can reveal conception. The beginning without the shadow my embrace tore me. Underneath there's no light, and mud is needed to make the beauty and the ugly. Two poles turning the larger wheels of the unknown can be touched, so Get up, get up, get up, get up. Being alive allows us access to a wealth of it has learned and accepted its lesson. Everything is good as long as you surrender. Get on the telephone and call up the all-embracing infinite without overflowing in a steady increase of when I get that feeling. The Big Bang is an orgasm of energy that spreads forever. You just have to accept what is warming before that evaporation, a type of containment in motion, a sign it is magnetic, arising from unwarranted self. There is always something bigger leaning on the other. Are you ready to lighten? Human is a spiritual experiment. Sometimes the humiliations we suffer are necessary, and I can't wait for you to operate the archetype, the might of the moon to enlighten some of the things in the subconscious or hidden. Left its seeds while I was sleeping. Most people never rest like this. We know there is more inside than we can see. This is not just having a nervous breakdown. It could mean that a person is the bridge between our consciousness and the first matter, is dark matter, not the light, the force that transports the idea through the formless desert of I to the am. I've come to reach out and touch someone. It's the hardest work in the world. The contemplation produces the point in time that physicists call entity, an annihilation of all seeing, where one revisits the beginning of potential. The greater self that expands into intuitive sight is I, rather than the crude sight of eyes. And the signs said the words of the prophets are written on the power of condensation. One can feel these forces. They feed into one's own force field. Are you looking for something easy to catch? I'll take all I've been hanging on the other side. I keep pushing until I am permitted to return, as if it is so near to the heart, an eternal pasture, folded, so innocent you could feel the light we chopped through the night there in the meadow where reunion is only a motion away. Thank you very much.
Whoa.